March 22, 1937, 2:47 p.m. Corner of Lenox Avenue and 135th Street, Harlem. Thomas Johnson, 28 years old, walked out of Murphy's barber shop with a fresh shave and a newspaper tucked under his arm. He was Bumpy Johnson's younger brother, a schoolteacher who had nothing to do with the numbers racket, nothing to do with the streets, nothing to do with the war brewing between Harlem and the Italian syndicates. He was humming a Duke Ellington tune when the black Packard sedan pulled up to the curb. 11 seconds. That's all it took. Two men in dark suits stepped out. One grabbed Thomas by the arm, the other pressed a gun into his ribs. A third man opened the back door. Thomas didn't scream. He didn't fight. He was shoved into the car before anyone on the street even realized what was happening. The Packard pulled away, disappearing into midtown traffic. By the time someone ran to tell Bumpy, Thomas Johnson was already across the river. Bumpy was at the Cotton Club when he got the news. He was in the back office, counting receipts with Junie Bird, his most trusted enforcer. A young runner burst through the door, out of breath, eyes wide with panic. They got Tommy. Bumpy didn't move. He was lighting a cigarette, the match frozen halfway to his lips. His face didn't change. His hand didn't shake. But everyone in that room felt the temperature drop 20 degrees. Who? The Italians. Little Italy crew. They snatched him off Lenox an hour ago. Bumpy set the match down carefully. How many men? 2 grabbed him. Driver stayed in the car. All of them wearing suits. Packard sedan, black, no plates. Bumpy stood up slowly, buttoned his jacket, and walked to the window. He stared out at Harlem, at the streets he controlled, at the neighborhood that bent to his will. Then he turned to Junie. Get everyone. I don't care where they are. I don't care what they're doing. I want every soldier we have at the warehouse in 30 minutes. Junie hesitated. Bumpy, they're going to call. They're going to want to negotiate. Bumpy's voice was ice. I know. The call came at 4:15 p.m. Bumpy was alone in his office at the back of the Red Rooster, a rotary phone on the desk in front of him. It rang 3 times before he picked it up. He didn't say hello. The voice on the other end was calm, professional, with a thick Italian accent. Mr. Johnson, I trust you've heard about your brother. Bumpy said nothing. We have him in a safe location. He's unharmed. We're not animals. This is strictly business. Still, Bumpy said nothing. There was a pause. Then the voice continued. You've been operating independently in Harlem for too long. Mr. Luciano believes it's time for a more cooperative arrangement. We're willing to offer you a position within our organization. 30% of your current operation goes to us. In return, you get protection, resources, and legitimacy. It's a good deal, Mr. Johnson. A smart deal. Bumpy leaned back in his chair, the leather creaking. And if I say no, then your brother dies. Simple as that. We're not asking for much. Just cooperation. Compliance. We'll call you tonight at 8 p.m. for your answer. Your brother will be returned unharmed if you agree. If you don't, well, you'll get him back in pieces. The line went dead. Bumpy sat in silence for exactly 60 seconds. Then he stood up, walked to the door, and opened it. Junie was waiting in the hallway with 14 men, every one of them armed, every one of them ready. Bumpy looked at each face, memorizing them, honoring them for what was about to happen. We're not waiting for 8. Junie stepped forward. Bumpy, we don't even know where they're holding him. Bumpy pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket and handed it to Junie. It was a hand-drawn map with an address circled in red. Warehouse off Mulberry Street. Little Italy. 3rd floor. 6 guards, maybe 7. They'll be expecting a call, not a visit. One of the men spoke up. How do you know? Bumpy's eyes were cold as winter. Because Lucky Luciano is smart, but he's predictable. He thinks I'll panic. He thinks I'll negotiate. He thinks I'll trade my kingdom for my brother. He lit a cigarette, exhaled slowly. He's wrong. 5:30 p.m. The sun was setting over lower Manhattan, casting long shadows across the cobblestone streets of Little Italy. The warehouse on Mulberry Street was a 3-story brick building, unremarkable, anonymous. Exactly the kind of place you'd use to hold someone you didn't want found. Bumpy's crew arrived in 3 separate cars, parking 2 blocks away. They moved through the alleys like ghosts, 14 black men in enemy territory, invisible in the gathering darkness.
Junie led the first team to the back entrance. Another team covered the front. Bumpy himself went to the fire escape on the east side, climbing silently, a .45 caliber pistol in his right hand. At exactly 5:47 p.m., Bumpy reached the third-floor window. Through the dirty glass, he could see 6 men inside. 5 were playing cards at a table near the door. One was
standing guard by a second door at the back of the room. Behind that door, Bumpy knew, was his brother. Bumpy raised his hand, 3 fingers up. 2. 1. Then he smashed through the window. What happened next lasted less than 90 seconds, but it would be talked about in organized crime circles for the next 40 years. Bumpy came through the window firing. The first shot hit the guard by the back door in the chest, dropping him instantly. The card players scrambled for their weapons, but Junie's team burst through the back entrance at the same moment, cutting them down before they could reach their guns. The front team crashed through the main door, boxing in anyone who tried to run. 2 men made it to their feet. Both were shot before they cleared leather. A third man dove behind a stack of crates, firing blindly. Bumpy walked toward him, calm, methodical, putting 2 rounds through the wood. The man went silent. The 6th guard, the youngest, maybe 19 years old, dropped his gun and raised his hands. "Please, I'm just..." Bumpy shot him in the head. No witnesses, no mercy, no negotiation. The entire assault took 87 seconds. 7 bodies, 0 survivors. Bumpy walked to the back door, kicked it open. Thomas was tied to a chair, blindfolded, unharmed. Bumpy untied him, removed the blindfold, helped him stand. "Tommy, can you walk?" Thomas nodded, too shocked to speak. "Then let's go." But Bumpy didn't leave immediately. He told Junie to get his brother to the car and wait. Then Bumpy walked back into the main room, stepping over corpses, blood pooling on the concrete floor. He knelt beside the body of the oldest guard, the one who'd been standing by the door. Bumpy reached into his jacket and pulled out a single playing card, the ace of spades. On the back, in his own handwriting, was a message. "Family is the line you never cross." Bumpy placed the card on the dead man's chest, stood up, and walked out of the warehouse. By the time the police found the bodies the next morning, Bumpy Johnson was back in Harlem, sitting in his office, waiting for the phone to ring. It rang at 8:02 p.m. Bumpy picked it up on the first ring. The voice on the other end was no longer calm. It was furious, barely controlled. "You killed 7 of my men." Bumpy's voice was steady. "You took my brother." There was a long pause. "You're a dead man, Johnson." "Luciano, Lil." Bumpy cut him off. "Luciano will do nothing, because if he comes after me, I'll burn every Italian operation in New York to the ground. I'll send my people into your restaurants, your bakeries, your social clubs. I'll make it so you can't walk down Mulberry Street without looking over your shoulder." Another pause. Then a different voice came on the line. Older, calmer. It was Lucky Luciano himself. "You've made your point, Bumpy." Bumpy leaned back in his chair. "Have I?" Luciano's tone shifted, becoming almost respectful. "You could have negotiated. You could have made a deal. Instead, you declared war. That's either very brave or very stupid." Bumpy smiled, though Luciano couldn't see it. "When you figure out which, let me know." There was a long silence. Then Luciano spoke again, and this time there was no threat in his voice, only acknowledgement. "We'll stay out of Harlem. You stay out of Little Italy. Your brother was a mistake. It won't happen again." Bumpy took a drag from his cigarette. "No, it won't. Because if it does, there won't be anyone left to call me." The line went dead. The next morning, every Italian crew in New York got the same message. Harlem is off limits. Touch Bumpy Johnson's family, and you answer to Luciano himself. The Ace of Spades became legend. Soldiers carried copies of it as a reminder. Bumpy Johnson had done something no one thought possible. He'd made the Italian Mafia blink, not with diplomacy, not with money, with violence so swift and absolute that even Lucky Luciano had to respect it. In the years that followed, Bumpy and Luciano developed an uneasy but effective working relationship. They never became friends, but they never went to war again either, because both men understood something fundamental about power. It's not about who's willing to hurt you. It's about who's willing to risk everything to protect what's theirs. Bumpy never talked about the Mulberry Street massacre, but years later, when a young Malcolm X asked him how he survived so long in a world full of killers, Bumpy's answer was simple. Respect is earned in 2 ways. You can negotiate for it, or you can take 7 bodies to prove you don't need permission. I chose the second. The calling card Bumpy left on that corpse wasn't just a message to Luciano. It was a message to every mob boss, every gangster, every 2-bit hustler who thought power came from a gun or a title. Power comes from one thing:
The willingness to cross every line, except the one that matters most: family. If this story of loyalty, ruthlessness, and the night Bumpy Johnson rewrote the rules of organized crime moved you,
Hit that subscribe button and drop a like. Share this with someone who needs to understand that some lines are written in blood. Let me know in the comments, would you have waited for the 8 p.m. call, or would you have done what Bumpy did? Keep fighting for what's yours, and I'll see you in the next one.